What's your financial goal?
You want more money? Turn what you know into dough. Start hanging out with the people who have it. You create wealth on your own terms. It is not only your rights, but your duty to build wealth.
You are fiscally fabulous.
It's time to enjoy your legacy.
You're listening to Fiscally Fabulous with Dr. Teresa R. Martin, Esquire, a podcast that aims to provide you with the tools, guidance, and encouragement you need to build your wealth, enjoy your wealth, and leave a lasting legacy. Dr. Martin is an accomplished attorney, speaker, business consultant, and real estate strategist, an all-around self-made success who provides highly sought-after expert consulting in the creation, growth, and maintenance of generational wealth.
Next is my baby, the next two lease option land, sandwich lease options. Those are my thing. That's my jam. But I want to break this down, and I made this slide very specific so that I can share with you like how it's done, because a lot of times people don't understand lease options versus sandwich lease options. Okay. So what is lease option? Okay. A lease option is a lease agreement that includes an option for the tenant to purchase the property at a predetermined price within a specified time frame. Okay, so that's what it is. So it's a lease agreement. It has an option tied to it, right? And they have to agree on what that price is at the time of that option and lease agreement within that specified time. 5 years, 3 years, 1 year, 2 year, whatever that is, okay? How it works is the tenant pays an option fee. Generally is about 1 to 5% of the purchase price for the right to buy the property later. And then the tenant leases the property and pays a monthly rent, often with a portion of the rent credited towards the purchase price, but not necessarily, right? Now, some good sellers or investors allow that, some don't. I like the option to, if they do on-time payments, I think on-time payments, you should give them a little bit of the credit to go towards the purchase price so that they have more money at the end when they exercise their option for the down payment, okay? And then at that end of the lease option term, the tenant can exercise that option to buy, or they can walk away. That's the difference between a lease option and a lease purchase. A lease purchase, you don't have an option to walk away. You buy it, okay? A lease option is just what it sounds like. It's an option. You have an option to buy, or you have the option to walk away, okay? Why would you do this? What's the benefits? It's because it allows the tenant to try before you buy while they build up that equity with rent credits if the investor gives the rent credit, because it's not always. And then it's ideal for buyers who need more time to improve their credit or save their down payment. Usually it's both, right? Because even if you have a 680 or 690 credit score, if you can get your credit to a 740, you're still going to get better terms. So it doesn't mean that you have to have very poor credit. It just means that you might want time to improve what you already have so that you can get better terms and better interest rates, okay? Or you just need more time to save up money to get that down payment, okay, that you need. And then sellers can generate rental income while marketing the property, okay? So an example here, I share that a property is listed at $250K with a $5,000 option fee. Usually that option fee is non-refundable. Just want to make sure we can explain that. And $1,500 monthly rent, where the $300 of each rent payment, if they pay on time, if you don't mind, applies towards that purchase price. And again, that's optional. Okay, but I like to reward my lessees because it just makes sense that you want them to buy, because that's how you get the remainder of your money as an investor. Okay.
For many women entrepreneurs, the struggle is real. We arose becoming stronger with every fight. Wealth is what we built from that together. A wealth of resources, a wealth of knowledge, and a wealth of powerful businesswomen. When you are ready to achieve financial freedom and become fiscally fabulous, call. It will not be wealth that empowered your success. It will be this call. EnjoyYourLegacy.com, 646-437-7139.
So now the sandwich lease option is we learned about what the lease option is. So now you have to put on another set of hats because now you're like in the middle, like you're the meat between the sandwich. So just think about it that way. So a sandwich, you got two pieces of bread, which is the seller and the end buyer, and then you in the middle, you're the meat, okay? Which is the most scrumptious part, right? Because I don't know anybody who wants a bread sandwich, right? So what is a lease option? A sandwich lease option. So a sandwich lease option. So it's a lease option where the investor leases the property from the owner and then subleases it to a tenant buyer, right? So put on your hat. If that's all you conceptualize, this is the important piece. This is why I don't know why anybody want to wholesale. And not everybody wants to do a sandwich lease option. I have no idea. I've been saying this like for 10 years. I have no idea. It is just awesome. And so the investor profits from the difference between the lease payments and the sublease income. Plus, you get that option fee, that $5,000, and the equity spread. Okay? So it's so awesome, right? So this is one of the things where I tell people, it's like, that wholesaling thing, that's a lot of work. And you got to find somebody at the end with money. And then half the time, they don't actually follow through, okay? Or they try to go around you and leave you out of it. So it's just a whole lot of work to me for that. And then you have to, for wholesale, you have to find somebody with money who got money like that to actually close the deal, right? Because they're not getting the mortgage either. It's a wholesale deal. So it's a whole lot of people who got challenged credit and just need a little bit more time to get a mortgage payment than somebody who got a lump sum of cash to buy a property. Okay. So my buyers, my prospects are a little bit more plentiful than a wholesale audience or prospect. Okay. So how it works is the investor signs a lease option agreement with the property owner. Now, this is important, very key. So remember the sandwich. So the investor signs that lease option agreement with the property owner. The investor subleases the property to the tenant buyer under the separate lease option agreement. Okay, separate. Okay. Then the tenant buyer eventually is going to purchase the property from the owner, with the investor collecting the profits from that spread in the middle. And I'll show you how that works in a minute. So the benefits, if you can see the benefits, no upfront purchase cost from the investor. Absolutely not. None. Zero. Okay. Generates cash flow through the sublease and wholesale and option fee. After you do a wholesale deal, are you still collecting cash flow? Don't think so. Limited risk since the investor is not the property owner. Okay. Got that? So the benefits are like those three right there. The risk, though, is the investor must manage both the owner and the tenant buyer relationship, because you still got to make good to the seller, the owner, and you also have to satisfy the end buyer because you're the one in the middle holding everything together. You're the glue. Okay. And if the tenant buyer defaults, like they don't pay their rent or whatever the case may be, the seller or owner not going after the tenant buyer is coming after you because that's where the agreement is. So the investor may need to find a replacement or pay. So that's your risk. Okay. So an example is that the owner agrees to lease the property to an investor for $1,200 a month with a $2,000 option fee. So we got $1,200 a month rent and a $2,000 option fee, right? With me? So the investor subleases the property for $1,500, right? It's a $300 spread, right? And collects $5,000 option fee from the tenant buyer. That's $3,000 upfront option fee, right? So on this example, the investor will get $300 a month monthly cash flow. Don't own it, but still get the cash flow. And get $3,000 upfront as an option, non-refundable. So in that scenario, this is what the beauty is of a sandwich lease option. So when I told you the 437 and couldn't get money and all of that, I built it all back with just sandwich lease options and land trusts and seller financing. That was my only jam and will continue to be my only jam. Okay, if I was to do physical properties again. So that's that.
Jade here hired an online freelancer to help her file her LLC. What she did not know was that she had to file her quarterly taxes. where to find her registered agent, or even why she needs one. If only someone had told her about the law offices of Teresa R. Martin, PC. Teresa and her team of exceptional quality professionals make it their business to establish great business. Let's schedule a call to make sure you are operating within the law. martinlegal.com.
So let's now just do a recap, a summary of, we didn't talk about pure options because it's just a pure option. So I'm not going to really go into that, just to let you know that the option process, you got pure option, which is a straight option. You have the lease option and you have the sandwich lease option. The general description of that is that you gain control of a property today with the option to buy later, and it's at a set price. Okay, so that's what it is. So the pure option allows you to have the right to purchase without an obligation. There's no lease tied to it. It's just that you sign an option that, dear seller, I'm going to do this option agreement and I'm going to give you your option fee, and you're going to give me time to just exercise my option to buy it. It's usually not a long term. It's usually a 6-month type thing max for a pure option. A lease option, rent now, buy later, we just went through that. And then the sandwich lease option is you lease from the owner and you sublease to a tenant buyer. And as we mentioned, it's control. Own nothing, control everything. I know you hear that a lot, but this is truly that scenario, okay? And then cash flow without traditional financing, and then build equity while building credit, okay? That's what the benefits are from a tenant standpoint or an investor standpoint. And the use case for this is that an investor building their portfolio with little upfront capital or while repairing their credit can definitely get in with this. It's just that you got to find the right market, and you really have to now go out there and start building up your relationship capital, if you will. So while it doesn't require a whole lot of financial capital, it absolutely requires relationship capital. And not a lot of us are building up that relationship capital. Networking. So your networks is relationships. So that's relationship capital, right? That's how you get more private money. That's how you get all these things built on relationship capital. So this is that strategy. So we have since talked about seller financing, owner financing, and options. Both the lease option in detail and the sandwich lease option in detail, okay? Pros and cons of the option. So the pro is low risk, okay, and cash flow with equity buildup, and great for retail exit. If you want to do the exit strategy for that or rent to own type scenario, you sort of buy time or you want to get your primary residence, however you want to do it, definitely great pros. Cons, risk of price appreciation beyond option. You can secure this though. If you're on the sell side, you're screwed because you set your price. On the buy side, you can anticipate it, and that's why you want to lock it in, but that is a risk of price appreciation. And then another con is need strong contracts and tenant screening, because we have Rent Perfect for RIA NYC for our benefits. So if you have not, and you're a landlord or you are in that space and you have not taken the benefit of having Rent Perfect, it's 95 cents to set it up, okay? So less than $1, okay? So you can have strong contracts and tenant screening and put that into Rent Perfect, and they help you self-manage that, but the tenant does pull their own credit and everything like that. It's a great benefit to have if that's something that you're doing. So if you're in a lease option space, rental space, or anything like that, and you deal with tenants, you absolutely want to make sure that you have Rent Perfect in your arsenal as one of our benefits. Okay, 95 cents, like I mentioned.
Fiscally fabulous, fiscally fabulous.
The purpose of Fiscally Fabulous Lifestyle is to take the fear out of business ownership and real estate investing. It's the spot where we share stories and insights and experiences, from successful entrepreneurs so that you can get their golden tips so you can be successful too. If you have a burning question regarding legal, real estate, and or business, please reach out to us at fiscallyfabulous.com, and we will definitely want to share your story on the air.
Subject twos. This is the last of our key that most people heard about. And this is a little tricky because you have to make sure that you're doing a subject to something that is a great deal, right? So description is that if you're doing a subject to deal, or a sub to is what they call it, is when you take over a seller's mortgage payments subject to the existing loan without having to assume that loan. Because if you assume the loan, you have to run your own credit, you have to do all those things and basically qualify for the loan. A subject to loan deal is you don't have to do that. You just take over the payment subject to the existing loan. The reason why I say you got to be careful with this is because you have to make sure that it's an existing loan that makes sense. A lot of people got into bad loans, right? I don't want to take over a bad loan, right? So you want to make sure that if you're doing your due diligence, if you're thinking about doing some type of subject to deal, that it's going to be a deal that makes sense, okay? Because if it doesn't make sense, it can't make dollars, right? And so the benefit of doing this is there's no new loan application because you're not assuming it, right? It keeps the low interest rate in place if it is with a low interest rate. Remember the existing loan, got to make sure. And it helps the seller avoid foreclosure, which is what they want to do, right? They might be in a bad scenario and they might need this and need you to come over and take over the mortgage payments because they fell behind and they can't catch up. A use case for this is you find a distressed seller behind on their payments, but they're willing to walk away from it. And you really got to be ethical when it comes to something like this. And this is why I tell a lot of investors who are going to use this strategy that you really have to be ethical and above board, because you're in a position to be able to help someone get out of their current bad situation. And you're taking over their mortgage payments. That means you have to be responsible to pay the mortgage payment, right? So everybody wins, right? So they win because you help them get out of their situation. The bank wins because you're making the payments on the loan. You win because you can get a property for a low interest rate without doing qualifying for a mortgage, okay? So you just got to make sure that if you're going to do this, you're above board and you're ethical, okay? And if not, then, you just have to deal with whoever your higher being is. The pros to this is that there's no credit check. It's really fast as long as you can get the paperwork done and you understand how to make it make sense for everybody to win, and you're structuring that creative deal accordingly, right? So this requires a lot of creativity and making sure that the terms make sense for you, because you're taking over the mortgage payments, but there's still an agreement and that you're doing with the owner or seller. So you got to make sure that you understand about deal structuring and how that actually works, okay? The cons, as I mentioned in the seller financing or other strategic creative financing strategies, the due on sale clause may come into effect. Usually, in my experience, it has never happened. I can honestly tell you, in years of doing this, it has never happened, does not mean that it won't, right? So you just got to make sure you understand that. So the due on sale clause is not on your end, it's on the seller's end, because if ownership changes, the financer, lender, underwriter has the authority under contract, under the mortgage agreement, that they can accelerate the mortgage and have everything due, okay? That's what the con. And then lastly, another con would be you need the seller to trust you and the detailed contracts. Detailed contracts in everything. So I didn't mention so much in the lease option, seller financing and all that. Just understand all of this is contractual law, okay? You need to, and I would not go by some guru seminar nonsense, okay? Because every single state is different, okay? And you want to make sure that you carve out your terms that you want and that the seller wants so that everybody comes into agreement. So you absolutely have to make sure that if these are going to be your strategies, any of these creative things are going to be your strategy, then you need to take time and sit down with a professional that's going to help you with your contracts to make sure that these are your templates. These are the contracts that I'm going to use when I do a lease option, sandwich lease option, subject to, seller financing, whatever, right? You just want to make sure. And you can take some, if you went to a seminar and you got some Google contract, obviously you can start there, but sending that out without having a legal professional check it out wouldn't make sense for you, because you want to make sure you're protected.
This has been Fiscally Fabulous with Dr. Teresa R. Martin, Esquire. If you would like to learn more on how you can build generational wealth and leave a lasting legacy, go to www.enjoyyourlegacy.com and be sure to subscribe. Thank you for listening. Until next time.